My name is Anton. I work in Freeletics, which is a fitness app, one of the biggest fitness apps in Europe. Before that, I was working in Feature as an ASO consultant and strategist. And yeah, my talk will be about prioritization, essentially. What I think is important, and basically the process of how to figure out what you should work on in ASO, because yeah, as I changed jobs like relatively recently, I found myself in a situation where I went from the agency to the publisher side. There we go. And for me, yeah, I pretty much had to go through that process. So I'll just tell you my story. There we go. There will be two parts to the talk. The first one is the actual process, kind of the blueprint of how I figured out the lay of the land at a company and what I should work on and what I think is important. The second one will be takes, because I had to fill in some time. And I think it's fun to share those. You may agree or disagree with some of them. That's totally fine. Afterwards, I'd be super happy to discuss those with everybody and see if you agree or not. If you disagree, let's learn from each other. So, yeah, as I said, I changed jobs about half a year ago, 4 months ago. And I was hired in Freeletics as a senior ASO manager. And the thing in Freeletics is there is a pretty small user acquisition team. I'm the only person doing ASO, and I'm like a senior ASO manager. So I'm pretty much in charge of all ASO, and like nobody tells, like there are kind of general business goals, but there is no scope of work, nothing like that. Like I basically needed to figure that stuff out from scratch. They had some ASO people before, but that was a while ago. Before that, as I already said, I worked in Feature, and to me that change was pretty interesting, because if you work in an agency, you have the client and you have the contract and you have the scope of work, and scope of work tells you like, okay, we work on X amount of markets. We will or will not be doing keyword optimization. We, I don't know, need to report like every month, every 2 weeks, whatever. You have some scope of work which tells you what you will be doing for the next like month or 6 months. That is not the case when you change jobs like that and go to the publisher side. Then like all of a sudden pretty much everything is up for grabs, right? Like you can do keyword optimization, you can do the ratings and reviews research, testing, like in how many markets should we test? Should I report like monthly? Like what should I do basically? Like there's just so much to figure out. So that was pretty much the process. And on top of all of that, I'm also in charge of Apple search ads, which is like by itself a big part of work. So you just need to balance that out, and you can understand the priority in that case is really, really important. On top of that, just to kind of paint the full picture, as I said, there was a ASO person before me, but like it was a while ago. So together with figuring out those priorities and like working on Apple search ads and just being new at the company, which in itself is like an experience. I also had to take over a lot of like legacy stuff, you know, a lot of documentation, metadata which somebody did, some A/B tests which might or might not be very well documented. So there was just a lot of stuff to figure out. And so the way I did it, I ran the audit. It's like one of the great things I learned at Feature, doing those ASO audits for clients, and I just did one for myself. That would pretty much be the highlight of my speech today, doing that kind of audit and research. Any ASO framework starts with research. You could see, I mean, frameworks and like processes from like AppRadar to Split Metrics, Feature, AppTweak, everybody starts with research. This one is no different. Why I think that audit is really interesting, first of all, for obvious reasons, right? Like for the sake of understanding the App Store kind of presence, data, figuring out your priorities, what you should focus on, and providing all of that valuable research, not only to yourself as an ASO manager, but also to the whole marketing team. I also think that it's a pretty good thing to do if you're new in the company, because for the first like 1 to 2 months, nobody really expects you to deliver anything significant, like you're onboarding, you're new. So if you can actually run like a solid piece of research, you know, find some insight, provide that to the stakeholders. That says some pretty nice things about you as a professional. So that is, yeah, that's what I think are two main benefits of running the audit like that. That is pretty much the contents of what I did. Also, some featured people will probably recognize the terminology, but it had 5 parts. Looking inward was looking at our own app and App Store presence. Localization overview is exactly what it sounds. Market and competitor overview, visibility analysis, and conversion analysis. I will now just go step by step with a little more detail so that I will kind of walk you through my thinking process, and then maybe some of that will be useful for you if you'll find yourself in a similar situation. If you have like a new app to work on, or you're in a new company, or just you're like overwhelmed right now with how many things you can do, and which all seem very important all the time, right? But what you can focus on in the moment. So step 1 was looking inward and analyzing our own store listings. Basically just laying out all of the important stuff for our key markets, not all markets. Doing that research for all markets would have been time-consuming and not necessarily too actionable. I mean, Freeletics is available in many, many countries. Looking just at the total data would also not be very actionable, right? So I looked at like 5 to 6 key markets. First, I looked at our creative assets, right? Like our screenshots, our icon, do we have a video? How many screenshots do we have? Are the screenshots the same across markets and across platforms? Secondly, textual metadata, our titles, subtitles, keyword fields. Like, when did we optimize them? Are they optimized in all of the languages? And all of that stuff. Ratings and reviews for key markets is just laying that all out on like one slide and trying to understand like, in all of our key markets, is the rating like above 4.3, 4.5? Are there any markets where we are substantially lower? If there are markets like that, then you might look into reviews and see what is the reason for low star rating. And then category rank as well. To me personally, I don't think category rank is that impactful on performance. Though I know there will be a talk about the category rank later, so we'll see. But it definitely helps you understand the market landscape a little bit better, and it's also usually very important for stakeholders, like head of marketing or CEO. They usually really care about like how high we are in rankings, and if you hit number 1, it's like big news. So, and it's also important for conversion rate somehow. So that is what I looked at once again for our key markets on both Google Play and App Store. Second, localization overview, looking at the creative assets. Are they localized? Like, are they culturally appropriate in the US versus Germany versus, I don't know, other key markets? To which extent are we localized? Is it just translated? Or did we go all the way to like, localize the content we're showing? We're using people who look like local people in certain countries. And then textual metadata as well. Is it keyword optimized? Is it translated? Is it localized? When did we do that? Once again, at this point, all of that research so far, we're just collecting data. We're not really making any judgments on like what we need to prioritize right away. It's just collecting all of that. Step 3, competitors and market overview. First one, this is what I like to do. I look at the market share, or it's not really market share because you don't really analyze the whole market, but there's a share of downloads compared to your competitors or to your like list of main competitors, who you think your main competitors are. The thing is sometimes, let's say you're like an up-and-coming e-commerce app and you think that your competitor is like Zalando and I don't know, Walmart, Shein, whatever. And that makes logical sense, but once you look at the market share, it becomes clear that like they're not really your direct competitor at the moment, right? For some of the companies, if they're substantially larger or substantially smaller, they just have a way different dynamic. Like the brand awareness would be different, the App Store relationship would be different, they would have a different kind of like featuring opportunity. They would already be on the market for a long time, so they're like indexed and re-indexed hundreds of times. So what you want to understand first, when you do a chart like that, is who are the competitors who are very close to you or like relatively close to you by market share, so that then you can shorten that list of like 10 to 15 competitors to maybe 5 competitors, and then really drill down and see what those apps who are very, very similar to you in size and target audience, in value propositions. What do they do? How do they do their ASO? And then maybe you can try to learn from them. That's just an example. You can have a slide like that, right? Once you have not 15 but 3 competitors, it becomes pretty easy to collect their screenshots and subtitles and titles and whatnot and icons and see whether or not, if they're doing something really good which you think you can also try out for yourself, or if they really, really suck at something and you can like double down on that and just win over them. That's just an example of like what you could find, right? Like you lay that all down, like, oh, that's a nice photo. We did not think about using something like that. That's a nice layout. That's an interesting splash screen. We didn't know we could put a promo code like that. There are usually like some kinds of interesting ideas which you just did not think for some reason about, which you can find during an analysis like that. That was exactly my case. I shortened that list of competitors down, laid out some of the competitors, and found some really good ideas for screenshots tests. Step 4, visibility analysis. That one gets a little more technical. So first of all, I analyzed impressions and store listing visitors, and downloads by traffic source for all of the key markets. Here, the important question to answer is, what is the percentage of search versus referral versus browse traffic sources? Once you understand that, you can quite easily sort of estimate whether or not keyword optimization would be very, very impactful. For example, if you get 30% of downloads, or actually impressions, coming from search, and of those, 50 to like more percent would be brand, it means that you're actually, whatever you do in terms of keyword optimization, you're working with a relatively small share of keywords. So even if you'll find like a bunch of keywords to rank for like top 10, top 5, it would not really reflect on the top line metrics too much. So in terms of total downloads, it would not make a big difference. If you'll be running an analysis like that, keep in mind the Google Play attribution kind of changes, which happened in February and also in May recently. A lot of you are probably aware of that. If not, what Google Play did is they took all of the search terms and they said that brand search is search and like generic search is not search, which makes no sense. But that's the way it is now. And then also in May it like spiked and went back. It's a bit messy. So if you'll be doing an analysis like that right now, looking at traffic sources in Google Play, it doesn't really help that much. What you can do instead, you can go to the Google Play console, look at the breakdown by search terms, so just all search terms, export them for a given market, and then like in spreadsheets, just summarize that data, and that would essentially be your old search. So that is a bit of a workaround, but now we need to, instead of the console, we need to use spreadsheets, so thanks Google. And then once you understand the breakdown of like search versus explore traffic versus third-party referral traffic, you can look at the percentage of brand downloads. That is also a bit manual. You export those search terms from Google Play, and then you just manually label top 100, top 115 to generic brand and explore. And then you can just summarize them and see like what is the percentage comparatively of like brand versus generic keywords. And that gives you that understanding of like, okay, we get that much users from search, and of those users, that percentage is brand, which you won't be able to do anything with. And that is the percentage of generic keywords, which we already have right now. So that gives you an understanding of how big the keyword optimization opportunity is. This is obviously can be done for Google Play, but I think in terms of that like brand to non-brand split, roughly that should be indicative for the App Store as well, because like the brand recognition, the brand power is either there or not. So it's very unlikely that you get like a ton of users from brand on Google Play and none on the App Store. Step 5, water break. Step 5 is conversion analysis. First, looking at average conversion rate by traffic source by market, you end up with a table like that, hopefully not with zeros. I mean, zeros are dummy data. If you end up with a table full of zeros, you have a problem. then you just focus on conversion rate. There is nothing more to do. But you end up with a table like that. What I did, I laid that out kind of for top 5 countries by traffic source, and I color-coded the lowest and the highest conversion rates across the board. That already, like at a glance, gives you a pretty good understanding for the past like 6 to 12 months, whatever data period you analyze. I usually analyze 6 months. Which markets you should look into right away, and within those markets, which traffic sources you should look into right away. Somewhere you will find that, search is really low. Somewhere, maybe like in, I don't know, the UK, referral traffic conversion rate is really high, but then in like the US, it's really low, so something is happening there. And remember, before that, we looked at the impressions and downloads. So I already know, like, if I see really, really low conversion rate, is it because I'm getting just so many impressions that conversion rate is naturally lower, or that is actually because I have a problem and I need to fix that, and like dig deeper into what's happening. We're looking for red flags here. Again, we're not really doing like a super deep dive into all of our like granular metrics and stuff. We want to really understand the lay of the land and figure out what should be the focus for the next 1 to 3 months. Second part of that is average conversion rate by keyword type. This is also Google Play only, though you can look into the Apple Search Ads data, which can be also somehow indicative, but most of that analysis can be better done for Google Play. We already exported all of the search terms, right? We've broken them down by brand, non-brand. It's pretty easy to calculate the conversion rate on the keyword level for like a specific search term and see what that looks like. Obviously, brand would always be higher, but if you can be looking at like your generic keywords, and then you would see that for like one generic keyword, conversion rate is like 15%, but for another one it's 2 to 3%. You know that 15% conversion rate is possible if the impressions volume is the same or like close to the same. So that once again gives you an idea of like, okay, you make a little note. There are some really important search terms, really relevant for our app, for which we get a lot of impressions, but we just don't really convert very well. So you want to tackle that. Benchmarks. I'm personally like not a massive fan of benchmarks. I like Thomas's, quote, which is something along the lines of the best benchmark is how you did yesterday. I think that's exactly right. Benchmarks, it's an aggregate of performance of many apps. What works for some would not really work for you. There are so many moving parts like the channel mix, the brand awareness, and whatnot. However, for the purposes of that particular exercise, when you're analyzing many markets, when you want to understand what to focus on, that can be pretty useful. What I did, I looked at Google Play peer group benchmarks to see basically how we're doing kind of by traffic source depending on the market. I did not use the App Store Connect benchmarks at the time. They were not available actually. If I was doing that exercise right away, like right now, I would probably look into them. Is anybody, by the way, using App Store benchmarks like a lot in the day-to-day work? No? There you go. If there's somebody from Apple, take a note. And that is what I ended up with. I basically ended up with a lot of notes for the most important sort of staples of ASO, right? Your conversion rate, your visibility, our ratings and reviews, what was done historically. You can take all of that and then you end up pretty much with a list of priorities ranked from like highest to lowest. And then you understand, in none of those things we make a decision of like, okay, we should not be doing keyword optimization or we should not be doing conversion rate optimization. That is, of course, not the case. But what you can decide here is like, okay, we'll be doing keyword optimization in 3 months, and we'll be doing conversion rate optimization right away. That was my exact case. Knowing all of that data, right? Like knowing that for some benchmarks, we were doing a little worse or substantially worse than some of our competitors, knowing that we did not really A/B test too much in the past year or 6 months. Looking at the competitors, knowing the conversion rate for like search and specific search terms, my decision was like, yeah, we'll probably tackle conversion rate optimization right away. And then as a priority number 2, 3, 4, we'll do other things. There is another way to do that, actually. Like, that was the process I went through, which is partially based on the ASO stack. Everybody knows ASO stack. That literally provides you with more or less the same structure. Like, you can just go square by square, kind of cell by cell, and like color code them. We're good at search. We suck at Apple search ads. Our localization doesn't exist, but like screenshots are incredible in the US. If you color code that, once again, you would get a pretty good understanding of what your next step should be. As far as I know, like Moritz used to do that like that exact way, just like color coding stuff, and based on that, building the ASO strategy. If that worked for Moritz, it would probably work for all of us as well. Then I have some takes. That was the end of part 1, by the way. So that's the blueprint, that's the process. Not super in-depth, but we're not talking about providing an incredibly in-depth research. We're talking about what should we focus on to build our ASO strategy. That is exactly what I did, and that actually helped me to structure my work for the next 6 months, let's say. The takes, important or not very important for ASO, in my personal opinion. Let's have a little bit of fun, break the pace, maybe, as I said, maybe you would disagree with something, come by, let's discuss that. I drew that chart by hand. I think the keyword optimization's importance depends on where you are. Meaning, like we discussed before, right? The impact of your keyword optimization can depend on many things, like what is the share of search, stuff like that. I think in general, what I notice is like the more mature the app is, the less impact you get in terms of keyword optimization. I think that's happening because if the app is mature, like ASO is not new anymore. This is the 3rd ASO conference. Before that, ASO was existing as well. If the app is mature, they've probably done some keyword optimization a few times. And with each cycle, it gets a little bit less impactful unless there is a very new, like, I don't know, market category or just a new ask from the market, basically something new people are searching for. So the keyword optimization was done like already many times. The brand power is increasing, hopefully, because the app was on the market for a while. So people are just searching for a brand a lot. And then the page was like indexed and re-indexed many, many times. So yeah, in a nutshell, the more mature the app is, I think the less impactful keyword optimization is. It doesn't mean you should not do keyword optimization. It means you can do that a little kind of less often. AI, of course. AI is very important to keep an eye on. I think that it's very important to keep an eye on because like I don't think it's a gimmick, obviously. I did not get all of the like metaverse and crypto and all of that stuff. I kind of figured out what I can do with like the chatbot within the first 10 minutes of using that for my ASO work, and I'm like not the smartest person. So probably there are so many use cases where you can use that. There are many ASO tools which are already implementing that. I know AppFollow has some like AI-centered features. AppRadar has like, they're really doubling down on AI. And I think it's pretty important, and it's already doing some really nice work in terms of, it can be a good assistant in your ASO like today, if you spend some time with it. It's pretty good pretty much for technical stuff, so reporting. If you work in an agency, you can feed the data. It gives you back like a coherent report, which is nice to have. I did a lot of keyword like mining and research with it. It was pretty useful. It does those very nice things where like you can give it a list of single keywords and it gives you phrases or sentences, which then you can feed into like App2Week or whatever tool you're using. And it will actually give you the keyword data so then you can work with that. I think AI is pretty important. Third-party app stores are not important just yet. I know Simon will have a talk about third-party app stores, so he'll have some smart things to say about that. I just don't think it's very important yet. I think it's exciting that Apple announced that they would like open the walled garden and there may be some third-party app stores coming. But I think if they happen, and it's like a big if that will happen, and how that would look like, is a pretty tough sell for the actual users, like for people who download apps. There's not a lot of reasons to move away from the App Store. It's a pretty good marketplace. There is a lot of apps, people are used to that. Developers have a lot of reasons to move away from the App Store, from like the 30% commission to PPO not really working, and all of those things. But like people don't know about PPO, and I think 99% of people also don't know about 30% commission. So that would be a tough sell. However, I think they can be big if it's gaming. Slides are gone. Let's do from memory. If that's gaming, I think Xbox announced like a few months ago that they're actually like investing and working on the third-party app store for iOS. And all of those companies like Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, all of them, they already have their stores, right? So they kind of figured out a piece of the puzzle already. Plus, they keep porting like really big titles on mobile. And let's say if the next Call of Duty Mobile is only available on the third-party like Xbox store, that is a pretty compelling argument to check out the store, maybe stick around for more games, right? So, so I think third-party app stores, especially for gaming, can be pretty big. Also maybe for something really, really niche where like the app store can be somehow specified for a specific use case. We'll see. We can do without the slides, actually. That's fine. Don't stress out. Give it up for the technical people out here. Okay. Oh no, that's very bad that we don't have the slides now. Anyway, because I had a QR code. Imagine that. Creative optimization. I think creative optimization is really important. I had the QR code, which leads to the website I built, which is called 41 Screenshots. You can just type in 41screenshots.com. It's like a site where I curate App Store screenshots, which I think are interesting or nice, where if you don't really know what to A/B test next, there are some really good ideas. I launched it recently. There are not too many of them, but I'm adding them every once in a while. I think creative optimization is really important for a few reasons. One would be, I mean, maybe I'm just biased, but like keyword optimization is not that impactful in terms of growth. Second, the AI, the automation, all of that, I'm pretty sure like within a few years, it will take over a lot of technical tasks. So a lot of the technical optimization hooks, keyword optimization, whatnot, they can be automated in a large part. And then also creative is the actual thing people care about. Like that's how people make a decision to download or not download your app, right? Like through looking at the good, I don't know, layout, photo, copy, whatever you're using. So that is I think it's pretty important if you really want to drive like substantial growth with ASO. That would probably also depend on like what kind of app you have, but that's a different talk. Okay, what do we have here? Custom product pages. I think custom product pages obviously are extremely important, but I don't think they're extremely important for everybody, because like what custom product pages are is an optimization tool, and that means that you get some substantial amount of traffic coming from Apple search ads or Facebook or whatever traffic source, but that's a little bit expensive. So, or like you could get a little more downloads. So you use custom product pages to optimize that traffic, bring the cost down, improve the performance. If you don't have a lot of traffic, if like you want to use custom product pages for Apple search ads, but there's just a handful of like good keywords which don't perform consistently, it would be very hard to judge whether or not custom product pages are actually helping or not. They might be they may have some like marginal impact on your conversion rate, but it would just be so hard to to analyze because you don't have a lot of traffic, right? So that sometimes you just have the bigger fish to fry, I think. If you hear everybody talking about custom product pages and how useful custom product pages are and how important they are, but you really see that, maybe you could focus first on like scaling Apple search ads or whatever other traffic source you have. Maybe focus on that first and do custom product pages second if you have a limited amount of capacity and time and resources. Competitive research. I think competitive research is not important as people think, because I remember we were interviewing a lot of ASO consultants and a lot of ASO people, and when you ask them, what is your, how would you create a roadmap of conversion rate optimization and A/B testing? They would be saying that I would look at what my competitors are doing. And I'm not sure it's the right approach to go for competitive research right away. The first step should always be looking inward, looking at your own app, at your own value propositions. You know your users better than everybody. Looking at competitors might sometimes be a problem because what looks good, you don't really know their data, right? If they have a really nice set of screenshots, it doesn't really mean that they work for them. And it doesn't really mean that they will work for you either. So it's a good data point. It's good to analyze and understand what they're doing, but it should not be the first reference. The first one should always be looking at your own app, looking at your own users, your own value propositions, your own data, and whatnot. In-app events and promotional content are more important than I thought, because when they were released, it just sort of looked like an extra tool to add some visibility to whatever you're releasing. Lately, both Apple and Google, they're pushing in-app events and promotional content pretty hard. At Google I/O, which happened a few weeks ago, they had one slide which was about the app quality, and there was a lot of factors which I guess they take into account when judging how high quality the app is. And one of those was constantly refreshed promotional content, which I guess might be if you had to guess, the quality of the app should also mean a lot for rankings and featuring opportunities. So we see really good performance from in-app events and promotional content. Apple can pick up your in-app event and actually turn that into a Today tab featuring without actually a separate featuring. They just take the in-app event and can put you there. That's what happened to us. It was sort of prearranged. We knew that would be happening, but the in-app events are now used as a way to feature the app. They put a lot of effort, a lot of focus on those things. So I think they're very important. In terms of prioritization, obviously I think it's a key priority. To me specifically, if you don't have a good project manager, if you don't have a very solid step-by-step planning process, being able to just kind of walk into the situation, whatever the app or company is, and within a week, that audit doesn't take a lot of time to run. To be able to understand what you have to focus on, and then based on that, it's actually relatively easy to then start planning your ASO strategy. That is pretty powerful. And that just alleviates a lot of anxiety. You know what's happening. You can also provide that structured plan to the stakeholders, to the CEO, head of marketing. And the value of ASO would become pretty clear right away. That is pretty much it. I think it's very important. It's very important to me that you all came and listened to my talk. I appreciate that. So thanks very much. Anton Tatarynovich. Check out 41 Screenshots. It's a nice website. Let's connect. Come by if you have something to say about those takes, or if you just want to discuss ASO during the day. Let's learn from each other and have a great conference. Thank you.